Hi, fourth graders. I hope you guys had a great weekend. I'm sorry it's so far away. It's the angle of the camera today, but we are going to read a little bit more from the Lemonade Wars. We are on chapter 4, partnership. Remember, at the end of chapter 3, we found out that Evan's sister was, she'd started another lemonade stand with her friend Megan, and so there was competition. So chapter 4, and I've got my reading partner here with me. He looks like he's already asleep, and the chapter hasn't even started, but that's okay. All right, so chapter 4, partnership. And then the definition, partnership, 2 or more people pooling their money, skills, and resources to run a business, agreeing to share the profits, which is how much money you make, and losses of that business. So think of partnership. All right. Jesse had been waiting for this moment, the moment when Evan would see their lemonade stand, see the wonderful decorations they had made, see the crowds of people waiting in line, see Megan Mortery standing by her side. He would see it all and be so impressed. He would think to himself, wow, Jessie is one cool kid. She sure knows how to run a lemonade stand. And then he'd jog over and say, hey, can I help you? And Jessie would say, sure, we were hoping you'd come over. And it would be like old times. Why hadn't it worked out like that? With one part of her brain, Jessie continued to take money from customers and make change. That was the part of her brain that worked just fine. With the other part of her brain, Jessie went over to what happened with Evan. That was the part of her brain that tended to run in circles. I know I do that. You know, you think about things over and over. She and Megan were selling lemonade. Business had been good. Then Mrs. Polly, a neighborhood mom, walked up. She had had a bunch of kids in her backyard running through the sprinkler, and now they wanted 12 cups of lemonade. 12! It was the biggest sale of the day. Megan got cracking, pouring the lemonade, and Jessie took the 6 singles that Mrs. Polly handed her. All the kids from Mrs. Polly's backyard were chanting, lemonade, lemonade, lemonade. A fly buzzed by Jessie's car. They'd been having a problem with flies because of the sticky lemonade spills on their stand, and she cocked her head back to one side to shoo it since her hands were busy with the money. And that's when Jessie looked up and saw Evan standing there staring. So she smiled, but he didn't smile back. So she waved. Even though she had all the money in both hands, she waved, and he'd know that she was happy to see him. And then he stalked off all stiff-legged and bristly, and she never got to say, sure, we were hoping you would come over, like she'd rehearsed in her head. And just then, Tommy Polly, who was 2 years old, pulled down his bathing suit and peed in the lawn. Oh my goodness. And Megan laughed so hard, Jessie was sure you could hear it all through the neighborhood. So remember, Evan, from his perspective, had thought that Megan was laughing at him, but in actuality, she was laughing at the little 2-year-old that had pulled down his bathing suit. That's what had happened. That's exactly what had happened, but Jessie knew that something else entirely had happened, and she didn't get it. The way she didn't get a lot of things about people. All she knew was that the sight of Evan walking away from her for the second time that day made her feel so sad and alone, and she wanted to run home to her room and curl up in her bed and read Charlotte's Web. Remember, she reads Charlotte's Web whenever she's feeling upset. Hey, Madame, cash register, said Megan, nudging her. You're falling behind. Ring 3 for this lady and this one kid here. Jessie turned away from the retreating figure of Evan. That's $1.50, she said to the woman standing in front of her. She took the $5 bill the woman was holding out and made change from her lockbox, focusing all her energy of that part of her brain that worked just fine. It's true that when Evan had first walked out of the garage, Jessie had banged up to her room and tried to think of every possible way that she could to make his life a living misery. She'd thought of telling Mom that Evan was the one who broke the toaster by playing hockey in the house, which was not allowed. She thought of taking back every one of her CDs. Gosh, CDs are like little compact discs that we used to listen to music on back in the day. Even though she knew what that would mean, that she would have to give him back all of his CDs. She'd even thought about putting peanut butter in his shoes. This was something she'd read in a book. And she loved to imagine the moment of horror when he'd think he'd had gotten some dog doo-doo inside his shoes. Sorry. But when these ideas had finished bouncing around in her brain, and when her breathing had returned to normal, and her fists weren't clenched to her sides anymore, she knew what she really wanted to get the old Evan back, the one who was so much fun to be around, the one who had helped her out of every jam. Like when she ate all the Lorna Doones that Mom had set aside for the Girl Scout meeting, and Evan had ridden his bike to the 7-Eleven and bought new packages before Mom had even noticed. Or when she accidentally, well, not accidentally, but how she was supposed to know, picked 3 red flowers in Grandma's garden that were a hybrid experiment. Evan had said they had both done it so that Grandma's disappointment would be spread around. Or the time that Jessie had smashed the ceramic heart that Daddy had given her because she was so mad that he had left them. And then, when she had cried about her broken heart, Evan glued every single last piece back together again. She wanted back the Evan who was her best friend. And that's where we're going to stop for today on page 46. So we've learned more about Jessie and Evan and their relationship as brother and sister. It sounds like they're really close, and that Jessie's really upset that her and Evan are not getting along right now. We also learned that it sounds like their dad is not living with them, and that Evan is a really good big brother. So I want you to make a prediction. You can write it on the comments in the YouTube channel. What do you think is going to happen next? What do you think Jessie's going to do to try to win Evan back? How do you think Evan's going to respond? All right, and we will keep reading more of chapter 4 on Wednesday. I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye.